Hi, Zach Reiser here, and welcome back to another Bass Effects review video. Today I'm going to be getting into the Spaceman Voyager 1 optical analog tremolo. Now, I have never reviewed a pure tremolo before. I've reviewed things that have a tremolo in them, like the Eventide H9 or the Strymon Mobius, but I've never reviewed solely a tremolo pedal. And I think that's because usually they're pretty simple and there's not a lot to really show off, but the Voyager has quite a few tricks up its sleeve that we're going to get into in a little bit here. So let's jump right in. I'm going to start with just my bass's dry tone Dingwall ABC 6-string on the neck pickup. All right. So let's start with the simple, straightforward tremolo side of things, and then we'll get crazier as the video goes on, and I'll show it blended with some other effects too. So starting with the tiny little level knob, that is just to set your output level to match your input level. Now, I personally, with tremolos, I always set the output level a little bit higher than unity because a tremolo will have a little bit of perceived volume drop. So for instance, this is my dry, turn the pedal on, get a little bit of a boost. But when I turn the depth up, right now I have the depth all the way down, and the tremolo actually starts working, you'll hear that it sounds more like unity. Okay, so this side right here is the normal tremolo stuff. We have essentially frequency is the speed of the tremolo, which you can see by the blinking LED, and strength is the depth. So let's put the depth right in the middle here for now, and let's hear what this speed setting sounds like. Pretty subtle. And so consequently, to make this more obvious, I'm going to turn the depth up quite a bit so we can really hear the tremolo kind of doing its thing. Okay, let's try a slowest frequency available. A little bit less depth just to hear a little more of my dry bass. Okay, so this is the slow side. Let's kick it up past noon. Let's go into the more speedy side of things. And then once we get it past 3 o'clock, we start getting into almost more like a sound effect territory. It gets so fast that it's hard to really even hear the tremolo, but it's definitely a very cool texture. Okay, and if I turn the depth up all the way so there's no dry bass, that alone is just kind of a cool, interesting synth texture here. So if I play like kind of a simple bass line, it's a little bit ridiculous sounding, but it's a cool texture. Almost sounds like really slow ring modulation. Let's turn the depth down a little bit. Let's put the speed back at noon, and now let's hear the square wave side. So this little switch is choosing between the wave shape triangle or square. This is soft like a triangle wave. Now we get choppy like a square wave. Nothing really too out of the ordinary here. Standard tremolo stuff. Beautiful analog sounding tremolo though. Now, most of the times when I hear analog tremolos, these square waves are really not purely square. They're choppy, but it's not like a hard, almost like a pulse width style tremolo. And this one is kind of the same. It's not going to give you that kind of like true stuttering sound, but it's still a very cool, hard texture. There's some harmonic work. Slow square. I think you get the idea of the left side, the normal side here of the Voyager. So one control I'm not really going to touch at all is the gain knob. You can get ridiculous amounts of distortion out of this tremolo, which is very interesting. I've never seen anyone do that in a tremolo, but just to show you what I mean, if I crank the gain up, the entire signal is totally distorted. unique. I've never seen a tremolo pedal do that before. For me, I personally would not use that feature very much, so I'm going to turn this back to a point where it's not distorted. So if that's your thing, sorry that I'm skipping over it. But honestly, you can just run a distortion pedal into a tremolo and get a very similar sound. So for instance, if I run a distortion from my Source Audio Aftershock into the Voyager, it sounds like this, which is a very similar sound to when I used the gain knob, which is why for me, I wouldn't personally use the gain knob on the Voyager too much. Okay, envelope. So this is really cool. You have two different options of how you use the envelope, but essentially it's using the dynamics of your picking attack on your bass to control parameters on the Voyager. So if I turn the envelope up about halfway here, put the frequency up, and I have it on frequency. So if I click over to frequency, basically the harder I pluck, the faster the tremolo is going to run. So you'll hear it slow down as the chord decays. Very, very cool setting. You get an envelope tremolo, which is pretty rare, especially in the analog market. If I flip to the fade side, this is even more interesting, I think. It actually is affecting the depth, and the harder you pluck, the lower the depth is, so more dry signal comes through. So if I pluck hard, you almost can't tell there's a tremolo at all. And then as it decays, you hear the tremolo come in, which is really cool. So if I put on a bit of reverb, and I'm playing kind of a noodly solo idea, and then I land on a chord, there's no tremolo on the run, but it comes in on the chord. The last knob on the pedal is the filter knob, and this is just a high-pass filter, a tone knob, essentially. It's useful if you're running distortion or something into it, but for instance, let's turn the envelope off for a second here. If I play just a normal kind of chordal passage, and I roll that filter back, it gets darker and darker. And then here is it in its darkest setting. Really cool if you want kind of like a broody, pulsing, ambient sound. In fact, if you put on like a little bit of delay here from my tonal recall, I still have the H Hall of Fame on, the TC Hall of Fame. Same settings, but with the filter fully open. So that gives you kind of a broad rundown of all of the different knobs on the Voyager. So now let's show how we can use this with some other pedals, which is always my favorite thing to do. So as I showed before, it's always fun to run dirt into a tremolo, especially a square wave tremolo. So if this is my kind of choppy, I'll leave the reverb on actually. I almost always have reverb on when I use tremolo because it smooths out a choppy tremolo, which sounds kind of strange, but I like that effect. So this is without the reverb on. Okay, and I'll leave it off, I guess, for a second. So let's turn on a little bit of distortion. So here's a nice medium to high gain drive from the Source Audio Aftershock, and here is with that choppy tremolo. Can be cool, for instance, to, with this, add some kind of phasing or flanging effect. So let's put a flanger on from the Strymon Mobius here with the same setting. Same thing, but with a phaser, and let's go to a triangle wave. Same settings. I'll make the a little bit slower on the frequency too. So even the triangle wave is nice and pulsy. It's got kind of a groove to it on the Voyager. All right, let's try a similar texture, but let's do it with a synth tone. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to click it back to square wave here, and I'm going to go to a synth bass kind of vibe using the Boss OC2 and the Source Audio Aftershock. So here's without the Voyager. Kind of a nice splatty fuzz with the OC2 on there. and here's running into that choppy square wave. Let's speed this up a little bit. Now, let's show the envelope feature a little bit with the same setting. So I'm going to put the envelope on fade, so it's fading the tremolo in as the note decays. And it fades in on the decay. Pretty cool. So if I have a synthy bass line, I want the held note to have tremolo, for instance, we can get a vibe kind of like this. Tremolo gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Also could have a thing where the frequency speeds up as I pluck the note. And you can hear it slowing down on the tail. Now this is a pretty compressed effect, so there isn't a huge dynamic range to begin with. Still a very cool kind of synthy vibe as the tremolo slows down as the note decays. So this is a synth texture, synth bass texture running into the Voyager. Let's try a synth kind of pad texture into the Voyager. So I'm going to turn that, and I'm going to leave the envelope on actually, but I'm going to go to a triangle wave here. And let's check out this crystal setting without the Voyager on. Okay. So nice pretty pad from the Eventide H9. This effect running into the Voyager. And just to kind of fatten this up a little bit, I'm going to put a really huge reverb on after the Voyager. Put it on the same settings here, but let's go to fade. So yet again, the attack of my note has no tremolo, and then the tremolo kind of rolls in. I think this gives you a good overview of what all the Voyager can do. It's basically your typical analog tremolo plus a bunch of very unique, cool features that are not on most analog tremolos. And the analog tremolo itself is just a beautiful, warm analog tremolo. I hope that you enjoyed this review, and if you do, please subscribe below, and I will be back soon with more gear reviews and performance videos. Thank you.